Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm Michael Sandler, your host on Inspire Nation. And if you've ever wondered where we're going and how in the world we'll get there, then do we have the Uncharted show for you. Today I'll be talking with internationally acclaimed intuition expert, oracle expert, and host of the TV show Messages from Spirit, and the best-selling author of a life guide guiding book, Uncharted. Today we'll talk about mastering the courage to step into the unknown, facing unfamiliar landscapes, and answering the call to transform ourselves and to reprogram our subconscious. That plus we'll talk about silver roads, spiritual narcolepsy, Wayne and Garth, George Burns and John Denver, a house full of Pomeranians, dragonflies and shopping for houses, the importance of a beautiful beaming white heritage soft-tail Harley, and what in the world does Fred have to do with anything? So welcome to the show, Colette. Are you ready to shine?
Oh my God, I love being on this show. I can't tell you. I was so excited when I saw that you asked me to be on the show. Yes, I'm ready to shine. I'm ready to talk to you because you are the best, most fun interviewer on the planet.
Well, I have to give that a mighty woohoo! And you are one of our all-time favorite guests and beaming so bright, Colette.
Thank you.
Let's back up. We're going to put you in a time capsule. We're just going to go back a couple years, not too far at this point. What in the world happened September of 2014?
Okay, well, September of 2014 was when I shot my Canadian television show, Messages from Spirit. I'm a medium as well, so we didn't talk about that, but and I had taped 12 shows. No, actually, I taped 26 shows in 12 shooting days, and I did over 330 readings. I'm going to say that was a correct number in that amount of time within a month. I'm telling you, like, it was insanity because I've never done that many readings in my career, like in that short time. And you got to remember too, it was a live studio audience. So it wasn't a show where you could edit stuff out. I mean, it was live on the spot with 200 people in the audience every single day. I'd have a couple of days to breathe and shoot again. And it was an extraordinary experience. But do you want me to tell you what happened after that?
Oh, and I absolutely do. And I'm thinking of like Dr. Joe Dispenza. We had him on recently. He was talking about the events he has and how when everybody gets in that meditative state, it kind of amps up the energy of the place. So with those 200 people that are around you during those readings, that must have been seriously intense.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, I was very reluctant for so many years to allow my mediumship to take the reins. And I was trying, and I talk about that in the book, about trying to do all kinds of detours and not be me.
Universe with a 2x4.
Yeah. But it was really extraordinary because I had to let go of myself. And when I say that, the only way mediumship really works is if you put yourself out of the way because it's not about you. And because you're really offering yourself up as a channel or a medium, an intermediary, like the messenger. And so doing that many in such short pieces of time meant that I couldn't come back to myself as quickly as I would need to in order to maintain my personality and think about myself, right? And so I really think that the intensity of doing that many readings in, like, again, with spotlights on me, I'd never done it before like that. And you can't fake that. You know, you've got an audience. You can't say, can I do that one again? You know, you just have to be on and get out of the way and let spirit come through you. And so once the show was done, I can tell you I was super exhausted. But I felt this presence with me. And it really did feel like the collective consciousness of all the people that I had done the readings for were with me, as if all the dead people were kind of following me. But then I realized it didn't feel the same as them, and I realized at first it was like, what is this real unison kind of a presence and consciousness? And it hummed. It hummed, and I started. Wow. Whenever I meditated, I would hear this humming noise, and I realized that it was like somebody had come to a party. Like everybody came to a party and everybody went home, but uninvited guests came and were there at my breakfast table in the morning and I didn't know who they were. is the best way to describe this. So I went to my editor, and I wasn't going to tell anybody about this, by the way, either, because it was so personal, and I was very protective of it. Very, very personal. It felt like it was the presence, and I questioned it a lot, but there it was, and it was exactly the same all the time. It was a sense of a culmination of a lot of voices humming, and I'd only had that experience once before, many years ago, and I talked about it in my first book, Remembering the Future, when I talked about meeting a giant angel, and it hummed. It hummed in the same way, but this was not angels. It was different. I don't know how to describe this, but all I know is that it was something other. So I was trying to explain this, and they were showing me pictures and images, and I was really felt influenced by this very happy group of voices. And so I told my editor about this. I said, I don't know. She goes, we have to put that in the book. I said, I don't think we want to put this in the book. I don't want to come out as a channeler now. I just came out as a medium. Like, what now what? She goes, no, this is like really crucial stuff. Like, we should start dialoguing with this. And so I was like, really? So she goes, yeah. So she starts to talk about them as if they were spirits. And I said, you can't call them spirits. They're not dead people. I know the difference, and so anyway, she goes, well, ask what they are. So I was like, oh, I never thought of that. So I can only hear them when I meditate, by the way. And I go into this very kind of, almost like I've eaten too much sugar. And I'm like,
You called it a half slobbery state.
It is. I'm about to say, and I actually feel like I slobber too. I'm like, they're like, and so I went into my zone and like, hello, basically I asked, and they were like, Zim, happy. And so I'm like, okay, hello, what do I call you? And then they said, clearly, they actually talked. Like, this is the other thing. It was like, they weren't talking before, they were just humming. Like, now it was like, we are we, you are we are light. We are when you listen. I'm like, oh my God, my head just talked to me in a voice. It's not mine. So anyway, so I'm like, okay, this doesn't really help me, but this is pretty cool. I wrote it all down.
Yep.
And then I said, okay, but I need a name. I need a name for you. What's your name? Now, you got to remember something. I have issues.
We all have issues, Colette.
So my friend Doreen Virtue, who I love, right? She's an angel specialist, and she hears and sees all these angels with these biblical names, right? My other friend Sonia Choquette channels the Ascended Masters. I had one experience years ago when she said she did, and I expected a Ezekiel or somebody as my spirit guide, and I didn't get that. I got Ollie. This is years ago, which is why I named my dog Ollie. But no, so I heard, we are Fred. And I'm like, what? No, you can't be Fred. No.
Does that stand for something?
No. Like, can't you be like Gandalf or something like important that people know and recognize, like Harry Potter? No. Fred. And went Fred. And they went, Fred. So I'm like, okay, you're Fred. Then, in the same experience, I'm like still out of it. And all of a sudden I see a picture, and it's the Dana Carvey character in Wayne's World. So I'm like, I didn't even like that movie, and I don't remember the character's name. So I'm like, what the F is going on now? I'm seeing Wayne's World in my head. And so I'm like, what is this person? So I had to call my friend. I got out of that. I'm like, I wrote it down. And I called my friend. I said, okay, what's the character's name in Wayne's World, the guy with glasses? She said, Garth. Then it occurred to me in my process, in my envision process, which I think we talked about the last time was on your show, when a student or client, or when you're learning it, you get names, you look them up, and then you find out the symbolic meaning of the name, and then it will have a message for you. Just like anything that shows up has a symbolic meaning. So I thought, I wonder if these voices are using my own process to communicate with me, because I used to call God Quantum Fred. When I was with Pam Grout, when she and I were kidding around together, we were on a project. I said, we're going to call it Quantum Fred, whatever you want to call God. I'm thinking, oh my God. So I look up the name Fred, and it means peaceful ruler, or ruler of peace. And the name Garth means defender of the garden. So I'm talking to the ruler of peace and the defender of the garden. And I'm like, F-O. It's like, So I call my editor. I'm like, you're never going to believe this. You're never going to believe this. So anyway, it doesn't happen all the time. I can't communicate all the time, but when I get in, when I need to, they're there.
Mm-hmm.
And they're very funny. Like they're very simple. They simplify everything. Like I like to complicate things. I'm a science geek. I'm actually a student of Joe's and a very good friend of Joe Dispenza. I study unified physics theory. I do all this geeky stuff because I want to understand how the world works and how come I can do these things and you know, where do the dead go and you know, how come intuition works and why can I see the future and all that stuff. So anyway. So every time I got heady when I was writing and I wanted to describe this experience in really, really scientific terms, I would look at my writing and it would be like super, super simple and like totally not what I thought I was writing. Anyway, so yeah, it was just crazy. And so Nancy Pesky was my editor,
Mm-hmm.
had this amazing ride with these chorus of voices that would jump in every once in a while and download all this information. Then we would sort through it. And the funniest part was, too, because they're so playful and so simple, and they're doing the opposite of what I think is important, which is my ego, which is the need to appear smart, right? And the need to have something meaningful that other people already know and all this stuff. No, I get a bunch of comedians that sing song at me in a chorus, and they call themselves Fred.
Doesn't this seem somehow appropriate? Because and your book is talking a lot about, you know, realms of mind and stuff, and getting out of, in a sense, our mind, getting into the great mind.
Yeah.
That there would be this giant sense of humor everywhere, and we are taking this world way too seriously.
Way too seriously, 100%, 100%, and it is what I say all the time. But there's still a part of me that wants to appear to be sophisticated and intellectual, and what they also showed me was my small self that desires these things because of how I was raised, because my parents were academics. And, you know, I had a huge chip on my shoulder for 25 years about doing what I do for a living. I'm serious, even though I got really well known and successful at it. And it's really only been a couple of years since I've been completely surrendered, and I'm having the time of my life now. But the ego self needs to define itself in such a way in the conformity of society, et cetera, and when we want to belong and whatever. And it's got this all little machinations going on, but that's not what these characters were showing me. It was like, you know, at all, that the realm of spirit, it doesn't differentiate at all, that we have to start there. Mm-hmm. And that the small self is the one that keeps us hostage to materialism and to separation and to the concept that there's not enough, we aren't enough, that we have to compete for limited resources, etc. So yeah, so the idea that we really need to not take ourselves so seriously, although self-evolution is serious business, it's difficult to break out of the familiar patterns that have defined us, and we have allowed our identity to be defined by, both culturally, like even like the whole species is going through a change right now. So that's the hard work. And so the rest of it, really, you know, just like in the Bible, they say, be as little children. And that's what Fred really kept hammering home to me. You know, be curious, stay curious, you know, be like little children. At one point, they were like, they'd showed me this little picture of me, you know, with me inside it with a little square with mm-hmm. there where I am, right? And it was like, and then all these kind of like very, very like as if a child, a fifth grader, or no, nursery school person had drawn it, right? And then it was this big sign, Radio Fred is everywhere.
Why do you think, and maybe you've asked Fred, so to speak, this, why did we come here with, and you call it spiritual narcolepsy. Why did we come here and have this complete forgetting in that sense of who we are? Not only do we forget who we are, we forget to have fun.
Yes. Well,
and it's a fun world.
I talk about two things. One is spiritual amnesia, mm-hmm. which we get very quickly when we're little children, and that we are trained to forget our true spiritual nature. And that is, in a way, so that we can see ourselves defined by the material world, so that we can actually orient ourselves here in whatever path or direction that we take, right? Mm-hmm. So the species is a 5 sensory species. We see the world through a specific lens. our first sense, which is the sense of the soul, is intuition, but we call it our sixth sense. And then we spend the rest of our lives trying to reclaim that memory, because I do call it the great forgetting in one of my other books. And, and so this amnesia that is temporary, because that's part of why we're here, is to reclaim our spiritual nature. That's actually what the point of, I had this great conversation with Robert Holden about the concept of original sin versus original blessing, because I'm a big Matthew Fox fan. And so is he. I mean, he talked about the fact that the original sin actually means that you forget that you are blessed. That the opposite to the way religion has created it in a way to somehow control the masses. But the fact is that we also forget that we are powerful, and that spirit lives and resides within us. And so that this idea that we are separated from God and from each other and from nature is the sin, right? That we are, that is the point. So that's part of the amnesia. And then when we discover that, we rediscover that through epiphanies that we have in spiritual awakenings. And those awakenings, if we start to really pay attention to them, help us awaken, right? They awaken. We don't stay awake for the whole time. We then start falling asleep at the wheel again, which is spiritual narcolepsy, right? Where it's like, oh my God, I'm co-creating my reality. I'm so blessed. I'm so grateful. Look at the magic in mirror. Oh my God, there's not enough. Oh my God. Right? And then it's like, whoa, what just happened? And that's what all of us do. That's the way we're made.
I am so glad that you're sharing this, and it's something that you discuss here in many stories and examples in this book, because you are one who hears. We may all be able to hear, but it's even your job.
Yep.
And you say that you too have spiritual narcolepsy, which is, for someone who doesn't hear that clearly, that's a mind blower and a huge relief that you would share that.
Well, first of all, I think that I am not a guru. I'm not interested in being that. I think a lot of times when we teach this, I mean, I'm really teaching complex, very complicated content in a very simple way, and I have to walk my talk. I don't know anybody, and gurus alike and I have had some of the most famous gurus as my clients who are now dead. So they were teaching thousands and thousands of people. They were human beings, right? And so I think if we deny that and we're looking for perfection, we're constantly in judgment of ourselves. And the truth is, yeah, I fall prey to it, but I get out of it faster. And that's what I can offer, is I can offer a way to get out of it faster, to learn how to recognize it, not stay in it very long, understand its usefulness, why it's there. I think it's actually harmful not to tell people that this is part of the human condition. And I only have my life experience, strength, and hope to share with other people. My experience of how to working with this content, and that's the way I teach. I don't ever profess to be perfect at it. I think I will learn until I die. I'm always going to be a student. I study with my colleagues. I mean, Joe Dispenza is a really good friend. I go to his workshops, right? And I think that we're here to learn. And with all the amount of information in the world right now, it's a choice to be ignorant. So the idea that there's so much information in the world that really is a choice to be ignorant. In my case, I can only share what I know. And this book was really a download from these extraordinary beings that showed me this holographic map of the universe and literally showed me this ball of pulsing light and all the webs and strands moving through it and how everything is connected and this connected universe. And then it was really interesting because I actually, that was the way the book was created was always supposed to be a sequel to my book, The Map, which is published in 27 languages and very popular. And the foundation of my training, this process called Envision, about how to retrain your subconscious. And so I always wanted the book to be the next book, but it was like I didn't really have a choice about how I was going to do it. So the kind of map that got downloaded was really these interconnected realms of how we all actually co-create reality, even if we don't know we're doing it. We go through this process of starting at spirit, going to mind or consciousness, then to light or illumination, then to energy, which is the action and intention, and then the form. And that's how the world is manifest, period. Right? And that all this talk about the law of attraction and manifesting stuff loses on this one particular pivot point, which is that the form is less important as the essence. That in fact, when we're chasing something or we want a goal to manifest something, we get very caught up in something that may not be appropriate to us, which is the form. We think, I want that thing, when in fact we really want to be in alignment with the frequency of the essence of that thing, that something else may give us even better.
Can you?
My career, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I think you were going to give an example.
So when I first started being a student of metaphysics, and I just started doing readings, so I'm going back 28
Perfect.
years actually now, 28 years ago, I was doing all these, vision boards, and I was so knee deep in science of mind, and that was like I was obsessed, and Unity Church and Catherine Ponder and all these other really cool authors. And I realized today that when I would pray to be shown, because I always was asking, show me my highest good. So I would always see myself with a microphone in my hand in front of thousands of people. Now, I was so inspired since I was 14 years old, to be a singer-songwriter. So I was pursuing that career. And it failed miserably. It was so many roadblocks. Not to say that I wasn't talented, because I actually did get a worldwide record deal when I was 40 years old. But I'm talking about my 20s, right? So, and I couldn't understand why was this thing eluding me. And so to make a living while I was failing at music, doing readings was easy. It was like, and I always thought that if something is too easy, there's something wrong with it. That's what I like. Isn't that silly? It's totally the opposite. Like, do what comes easy. Hello. Anyway, so I started doing readings. I used to tell people, I don't really do this. I'm really a singer. Don't come back next year. And because
I love that.
Right? I don't really do this, right? And then I remember, anyway, first client, overseas client from India phones, and clients from London, Japanese tourists show up at my house. Like, it was crazy, because that was when I was taking people in person. And it was so effortless. And I had a wait list, like so quickly, this big giant wait list. And but I was still pursuing singing. I didn't notice that this was the path I was to be on, because I was so fixated on the form of the other. Make a long story bearable, I just had to give the other up. I realized that, wow, okay, so I'm a reader. And I would make sure I didn't call myself a psychic or a medium. I was an intuitive. Because it was much more palatable to the modern mind, right? Didn't have those connotations.
Sophisticated mind, yes.
Exactly, right? So I still had that chip on my shoulder, which was a big giant block. So, but whatever, people are fine. And so then out of the blue, I created Journey Through the Chakras. That got the attention of one of my clients, who was the head of the business department at EMI Music. Here's the deal, back to my first vision boards when I put Capitol Records there. It was Capitol Records 20 years later that I got the record deal with. Had critical acclaim. My music was, well acclaimed, and I proved to myself that I was really talented. But I wasn't cut out for it, and I was never going to be the kind of successful person, because the whole point is the essence of my desire was based on its initial inception, which was this. Music had saved my life. Music was the only thing growing up that I felt that understood me, or that I could feel that I knew what life was about by listening to music. Joni Mitchell, Crosby, Stills, Nash, I had all my favorites. And they influenced me so much and saved my life. I had suicide attempts and stuff, all kinds of boring things. Anyway, so when I got clean and sober specifically, I really realized that for me, music was that influence. And that I could help other people. But I felt that way all through my 20s when I was pursuing it too, but I was a drug addict. And of course, you can't get anywhere when you're a legend in your own mind and you're rather smoke a crack pipe than be on stage singing. That's a whole other story. But so here I am, many years later, 40 years old, Journey Through the Chakras comes to the attention of EMI Music. EMI Music gives me my record deal. I got the two things. At the end of my second album, I get a book deal with Hay House. I get a tour with Sylvia Brown. Mm-hmm. I'm in front of 7,000 to 8,000. She had huge people following her, microphone in hand. Now, one last thing that I got to share. This is the coolest story. So I'm feeling this. I know this. I'm still uncomfortable with myself, though, because when I'm still touring with Sylvia, I'm new at Hay House. I'm not accepting of myself. I refuse to admit that I'm doing mediumship. I'm just really good at my intuition. That's all I was willing to admit. Mm-hmm. That I talk to dead people sometimes, sort of. I'm a hybrid. I had to make up all kinds of names. But I really still had the chip on my shoulder. So fast forward to this year when one of the pictures of my initial vision board came true, because I wrote, if I'm going to be a really successful singer, okay, my vision, I would get to sing, I would get to be at this very famous Canadian music hall called Massey Hall, which had the best acoustics on the planet, and all the most fantastic artists would play there. If you get to play Massey Hall, you've arrived. So I moved to the States at this point, come back to Canada to do the I Can Do It. Mm-hmm. I'm standing on stage in front of 2,500 people, really feeling like a lightning bolt went through me. I'm in my power. I'm doing mediumship. Okay. Now at this stage, I'm completely accepting of myself and everything about myself. I'm walking my talk now. I get off stage thinking, I am so where I belong. And then I realized I was in a building that was called the new Massey Hall.
Woohoo!
Roy Thompson Hall was the new Massey Hall. And it occurred to me that spirit's form, I got what I wanted. Microphone, thousands of people standing there, Massey Hall, sharing, influencing others through my life experience, right? And having a positive impact on others for the highest good. That was all I ever wanted. It was never to be famous. I used to joke about being famous. Oh, I want to be a rock star. No, it was never about that. But I got everything. But it just wasn't the form. It had uncanny elements of the form, but it wasn't the exact form. Now, had I just stayed in music and continued to push over there, refusing this, I would not be able to say that to you today, that I co-created with a partnership with Spirit, an extraordinary life where Spirit led me.
How do we, and thank you so much for sharing, it's really helpful for people. A couple years ago, it may have been more than that because books they never come out the day they were written. You had a detour again, a smaller detour perhaps, but one that kind of came back on track, if that's the right way to say, with a Harley ride gone bad, so to speak.
That's 3 years ago.
3 years ago. How, maybe you can share about that. And the most important element is, do we need to have, I've had those Harley rides, so to speak, at least a couple times with a 2x4. Do we need to have that, or is there a way that we can connect and get out of our own way so we can realize the essence rather than the form?
Yes. So first of all, this is really about being worthy to be yourself. All right. So
I am worthy. I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy.
Which is so bizarre, right? That's the whole Wayne's World thing.
Yeah.
So, right. So I have always been afraid of, not now, but I was very afraid of other people's opinions of me. Mm-hmm. I was raised by a Holocaust survivor mother, that the basic understanding that she had of the world, that if you were yourself, you could get killed. So there was always this construct, this social construct that we were taught to hide behind. In our case, we were well-to-do. We went to a private school. In my mother's idea, that was going to keep us safe. Money would keep you safe. You came from a good family, and there was, blah, blah, blah. She didn't even tell us we were Jews until we were in our 20s. So, and that was only after my father lost everything, and everything just went kerplunk. And then she told us she was a Holocaust survivor. It was like, Before that, I was an Anglican. So So to be totally myself, and never mind that I've had a million past lives of being burnt at the stake, and people have opinions, really strong opinions when you tell them that you talk to dead people or that you're even a psychic, right?
Mm-hmm.
You say that word, people cringe, or they think you're something that's duping people or whatever, right? And or other people are like, oh, tell me what I'm thinking. So I had been on a national television show. I won't say which one because I really love them. They're very nice. And but I was really bullied after this huge TV show, and I got scared. So I thought, I don't want to be bullied like this. I don't want to be that well known at this. If this is what comes along with it, screw that. I have this really, really great talent at business strategy, which I do have because I have some regular clients that come to me, and I'm really amazing at this. So I thought, I'm going to get rid of everything else. I'm only going to be that. So
Play
I hired.
it safe.
That's exact. I wanted to play it safe. I didn't want any more criticism. Mm-hmm. I didn't want any churches writing me any more notes about the fact that I was Satan's daughter, even though I seemed like a nice girl.
I am so sorry that you actually got a petition. A petition. Yeah. Oh, I am so sorry.
A petition, and they were so sweet. They all signed the prayer line, like 200 some odd names. It scared the crap out of me. I open it up and I'm like, oh my God. There are people in the South of the United States who actually think that I have something to do with Satan. And I don't even believe in the devil, right? So it's like, but that really terrified me. So I'm like, I'm out of here. I am out of here. So I got what I wanted.
Yeah.
I ended up, okay, so this is crazy. So I go to a Washington brand specialist, very nice woman, spent a lot of money on restructuring my quote unquote brand so that it would be safe and my box would be nice and shiny. And I could go into the business world as an intuitive. Aren't they nicer over there? Like, we wouldn't have any churches on that side. Like, want to burn me at the stake, yada, yada. So I end up 1 week later, I end up going on my Harley Davidson. I had a beautiful white heritage motorcycle I'd gotten, and I knew the bike didn't fit me, which was interesting. It was too fast. It was out of control. I couldn't control the bike. I couldn't feel where the friction zone was. I couldn't really feel it. And to make a long story bearable, I went really too fast around a corner, hit some sand, and almost killed myself. I hit 6 granite posts. Thank God I was wearing a helmet, and I ended up in bed for 3 months. And so that was a metaphor.
Miracle. As a rider myself, that is a miracle that you actually survived that.
I didn't know you rode.
I ride. I haven't gotten a bike yet since we left Maui a year and a half ago. And when we move, I will have a bike again. But yes, absolutely.
Right on. So you understand, right? You understand, like, now all of a sudden, okay. So the metaphor for me...
And this is the longest period in forever that I've had no bike, so...
Right. Yeah, I get it, right? And even the accident didn't deter me. I was determined to get out of my anxiety because I had PTSD after that, right? Because I caused the accident. But the truth was, if you look at the metaphor of that, and I felt like I was being held in the air, like going through the air, that I got a really clear message, okay, I get it. I'm not going to die. Something's going to happen with this. I'm supposed to. So I knew right away that this was an opportunity for growth for me. And I had to really regroup. And I was very stubborn. I didn't want to regroup. I was still frightened. And so my small self still wanted to go where it wanted to go, where I didn't belong. I mean, I could force myself to belong, but I didn't belong where I wanted to go. Not truly. I could do it very well. And certainly I could have made a lot of money. But it wasn't authentic to the full-on me. And I was trying to whitewash myself, right, and make myself more conservative. And the truth is that's not me. So I had, that was the lesson in it, is that when you serve up your authenticity to be safe, you're not safe. You're less safe, actually. And so that detour for me was important. I don't regret it. I don't regret it at all. And I left Hay House for a while. I don't regret that. I'm back there. There's so many things that happened that I do not regret, because I know now 1,000% that the only way that I'm going to be able to live comfortably in my skin is to just be me.
Woohoo! Woo! After my second near-death accident, I remember, I think I was probably still on crutches, and I'm crutching up this hillside because I was determined to come back. And I think I made it up this hillside in Maui, turned around, and I've got these, they're called Canadian crutches. You know, if you picture somebody in polio, you know, 30, 40, 50
Yeah.
years ago, I have these half crutches, and I'm coming down the hill, and I heard very clearly, it wasn't a voice outside of myself, but I was asking, why did this accident happen? And my higher self spoke with me and said, I think you're ready to hear this now. I took you out.
Yes, I took you out. That's how it felt. I took you out.
And it because I wasn't being my authentic, true self.
Yeah. Yeah, so you get it. You know when that happens. And then you have to face the fear that got you there. Like, what was it that scared me so much?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that I had to face that deep terror in me that something bad was going to happen to me if I'm totally myself. And I realized with great compassion that was my ancestral truth. That was my mom, that my grandfather was killed in Dachau.
Mm-hmm.
You know, my mom pretended to be a Christian in order to, you know, like she was. So there was all these things that is a legacy in our family. And nothing I could have done differently and except really get in there and love the part of me that's afraid and set her free. Set her free, because I can't live the rest of my life afraid of what people are thinking about me, because it's none of my business what people think of me. And you know what's really cool? Ever since I made the decision because I had done one event I wrote about in the book, and I did the best readings of my entire career. It was as if something inside me said, you're going to sit this one out. We're going to do it for you. And it was the most amazing experience. But I have had less trouble now because I'm not afraid anymore.
Isn't it funny how that works out? The fear manifests it. If fear manifests exactly what you don't want, when you go, I think Tony Robbins may have put it best 20, 30 years ago when he talks about driving an F1 race car. And he was taught that if you look at the wall that you want to avoid, you're going to slam straight into it. Yeah.
Same with biking, right? If you can't look at the ground, you're gonna go towards something else. Your bike's gonna go where your eyeballs go.
Exactly. And I was a professional cyclist for years as well. And if the guys in front of you crash, you don't want to look at them or look at what's happening, even if you think I need to be safe by seeing what happens in front of me. If you look at them, and this is the same thing in motorcycle racing, if you look at the person that's gone down in front of you, you're going to barrel straight into them. You need to look at the line where you need to be and imagine that it's going to be clear when you get there.
Okay, so you just said something so profound. So anybody listening to this or watching this is exactly what we all need to do right now with our current conditions of our lives. And the uncharted way to go, which is the one that we have to somehow see in the distance, that we aren't there yet. We can see what is possible, like the train wreck in front of us. If we look at the current conditions of our lives that were set in motion in the past by a self that, might have pedaled off in the wrong direction and then ended up with this big giant hairball of bikes, for example, right? You can't look at that. It's like, okay, whatever. We have to go beyond that. We have to look at where we want to go and say that whatever is in front of me right now is none of my business. So it's like there is such an extraordinary world that is in the invisible that we have to call into form that doesn't exist yet, but exists in its essential form that just isn't there yet. So we can't totally see it, but we know it's there and it's not here, right? And it can become here if we hold it now, in the now, because the now self isn't the self, is not the train wreck. The now self has already gone past that, and we have to keep seeing that, right? This is the illusion. This is the Maya that I'm not going to be the one that's, figured out, like I said in my book, great and mysterious things. It's not called by Colette baron-reid for solving it for all of humanity. That's not what's going to happen. But it's these ideas of saying, okay, I may not know what the heck is going on right now, but I know how I want to feel. And I know that out there, that in this field that's not really out there, it's here.
Right.
I can call something into form in the divine appropriate timing that is right for me, appropriate for me, that is not tied into my reaction against something that had nothing to do with my current self.
That's awesome. So from there, we were talking off air beforehand briefly. The show has been wildly successful. And as we're coming up on some moves, on some change, on thinking about baby time here, my subconscious has really gotten jiggy with me. And
Jiggy with me.
it is. And jiggy and wiggy, or wiggly wormed even. And I think this is something that a lot of us face. And so maybe we can delve into the realm of mind. You can share that with us. And how in the world, as we get closer and closer to whatever we define success, happiness, anything, why this subconscious pulls out the rubber the rubber chicken and starts beating us with it.
Okay, because that's our conditioned mind.
Mm-hmm.
So only a very small percentage of our thinking mind has any say over anything, right? The subconscious has a say over everything. So whatever we fed it or conditioned it over time, especially the things that are being reinforced and repeated, is our reality. That's what it's going to ask you to look for. Mm-hmm. So if you're now all of a sudden looking beyond what's familiar to you, and saying, I'm going to the Uncharted, your subconscious is going to go, excuse me, hello, no. You're going to go here because here's where we know. We've been programmed to protect you. We're going to do that. You're going in the wrong way. The familiar and the certain is what makes you happy. So even though it makes you miserable, and it sounds like, right, we're going to make you go here. And so it's going to fight you, and you're going to feel like crap because it's like you're peeling away this thing that can't help itself. It's like, no, right?
You must know my dreams.
Right? Like, I'm going to tell you something in meditation. So I'm a meditator. I meditate twice a day, 45 minutes, as soon as I wake up, before I go to sleep. My husband and I don't have coffee, nothing. The two of us up, headphones, the whole 9 yards, downstairs, feed the dogs, sit down, do our thing. One day, after I had really reached, I know the monkey mind, and then I hit that, I just hit that sweet spot. One day, I sat down, and my body started hurting so bad. It was like every pain in my body, because it was trying to hold on to me. Because it doesn't, right? Because the body holds the subconscious. If we're retraining and reframing things for the subconscious, we're asking it to change. So the parts of it that's also used to itself, that we're addicted to it. That's like an addiction. So it was hurting, and I couldn't sit still. And I'm like, okay, fine. I'm just going to sit here until I do. And I had to sit for an hour. And finally, I was like, pop. But it was excruciating. And then I realized that, okay, yeah, my old life wants to keep me hooked in it because it thinks it's going to keep me safe because that's its job. Or so we want something new. We're in no man's land when we're choosing. I mean, it's easier when there's you've hit bottom and something huge happened to you. But this kind of thing that we're all going through right now is very subtle. It's not like, oh, I've hit bottom and I know I'm going to die, so I'm going to make a new choice. I have no choice. It's not like that. It's like, it's different.
So how do we, it's fascinating. This might be a complete tangent. I was talking with CJ Liu of the Fired Up with CJ show. She was on the show earlier today, and we were talking about how I really enjoy cold water swimming lately. I've been going out into the lake, into the fall. It's been cold out, and it's been this leap of faith as my body has been adapting to this. And it's interesting because my subconscious starts screaming at me before I get in the water. Fear, 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 terror, terror, terror. You're not going to throw me into cold water on a cold day. And I'm going, you're going to adapt. You're going to change. You're going to be fine. And I guess I'm somehow going through this process, and it's coming up viscerally in the body. I didn't realize this is working on the subconscious without throwing ourselves into cold water. How do we start to reprogram our subconscious then?
Ooh, this is a very rich and thick and juicy conversation now. Okay, so here's the thing. We can bypass it. And so when I talk about reprogramming your subconscious mind, if you give the subconscious a new place to inhabit, that it's more pleasurable or it's different, where you can create a state of epiphany, because it's the elevated emotion that's going to make the body pay attention. It's not just like, oh, maybe I'll go do this. So something that can snap you out of that and then bring you into an elevated state of awareness. Actually, probably Dispenza probably would have talked to you about that as well too. The elevated emotion with an intention gives the opportunity for change, right? And you can start turning on and off different genes and things like that. So I'm going to actually take you through a process right now with everybody. So let's do an exercise, and I'm going to ask everybody who's watching this or listening to it on iTunes to go along with us. So every state of mind is a place we inhabit, right? So if you were to look at your states of mind as temporary places, and I ask you to say, where am I? When I feel this, where am I? What I'd like to encourage you to do is to see that as a place in environmental terms. For example, when I'm overwhelmed, I might see a volcano, that I'm inside a volcano, or I might see a factory I can't get out of. So like whatever comes to mind is usually your unconscious is going to deliver it to you. So when you are in that subconscious space that you described before, where you feel like it's coming to grab you and hold you hostage as you're trying to move into these wonderful new states of being, what are the emotions that go along with that?
So we would have fear in there, we would have lack in there, and we would have a feeling like I can't do it.
Right. Okay. So the impossible. I can't do the impossible. Perfect. So if fear and lack and feeling like you can't do something were a place you inhabited, and you ask yourself, where am I when I feel these feelings? What's the first thing that comes up for you? And I'd like you to do it fresh now. First thing that comes up for you.
Small, dark shoebox.
A small, dark shoebox. Okay, you're trapped in a small, dark shoebox, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's not a nice place to be. So if that's a place where you inhabit when you're feeling like that, and I could give you a way to get out of it, would you take it?
On a conscious level, absolutely.
Okay, great. Excellent. Okay, remember that you're trapped. You're correct. In the conscious level, no, you're trapped in there, but you can leave a place. You can't leave a state of mind. If all you say to yourself is, I'm afraid and there's lack and I can't do it, you can't leave that. But if you say, I'm trapped in a tiny shoebox, you can get out. So I'd like you to call a winged creature to yourself, and it doesn't matter what shows up in your imagination. The first thing that comes to mind, tell me what it is.
Balfour.
Balfour. Okay.
Well, I believe Balfour had wings. It's the dog in the Never-Ending Story.
Balfour does have wings.
All right.
Yeah, Balfour definitely has wings, and he was a dog dragon. Perfect. Okay. So what I'd like to invite you to do now, because you're in a closed structure, right? You have to trust that Balfour is going to be able to lift the lid. Do you trust that?
Oh, yes.
Okay, good.
I'm snickering because I had a dog for 16 years. She looked like Balfour. I never pictured her quite with wings, so this is perfect.
Right? This is perfect. Okay, good. So I'd like to invite you in your imagination to move your butt back and forth so that you're physical with this, and get on the back of Balfour.
Yeehaw.
All right. Now, Balfour is going to take you high, high in the sky until all you see is blue. Let me know when you're there.
I'm there.
Okay, great. What is the difference between being on the back of Balfour in looking at the blue, in your feeling in your body, than when you were inside that tiny box?
More than night and day.
More than night and day. Okay. So do you notice a difference in how your body feels, your physical body?
I'm lighter. I'm taller.
Right.
I don't feel like I'm compressed down inside the box.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm up. I'm extended. My shoulders are back. I'm expansive. I'm, dare I say, powerful.
Yes, dare you say that. That's correct. You should say that. So if you were to look over the side of Balfour's wing, how large or small is the place now that held you hostage?
Completely insignificant.
Correct. Now, let's just imagine that Balfour will drop you in your seat, plunk. You can open your eyes, feeling, right? We did not change or resist anything, did we? We didn't tell you anything about don't be afraid.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't say, oh, let's work with the fear. We didn't do that. Let's not talk about the fear. We didn't say where it came from, right? We didn't do any of those things. We allowed it, everything negative, quote unquote, in the subconscious to exist in its integrity. You can't make the subconscious go away. You can move. So I taught you how to move your mind. You just moved your mind. And what happened? Cascades of hormones. We are chemical creatures. So you were in fight, flight, epinephrine, adrenaline, cortisol, your mind went, your amygdala is the only thing that's working. You can't think straight when you're in the box. Over here, I can make a choice. I can look forward to these amazing things. So the subconscious doesn't know that the dragon wasn't real. Okay? The more you do that process, the more you start to train your subconscious to recognize. Now, why did it not fight? Did you ever ask yourself that, given that the subconscious fights things that are changing? You want to know why?
Yeah, I'd love to.
So if you think of the earliest cave drawings and the most primitive art that we've seen yet on this planet, or that anthropologists have found, the image of a winged creature was always represented in a sacred way by the earliest human memory, our ancestral memory, in the subconscious of the entire planet from the first human on down. We have never been able to fly. So flying things are magical to us. They just are. So your subconscious is not going to deny the bird. It's
Tricky.
like, okay, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I constructed all this actually from a number of different things I studied over the years. Jungian psychology, because this is active imagination, shamanism, which is, of course, the birds, my own interest in anthropology, and eco-psychology. So there's idea that, and spiritual ecology or eco-spirituality, I can't remember which, but they're both, all about how human beings identify themselves in nature, and our most primitive brain, which is amygdala, right? That's looking to run away from a brontosaurus, goes, oh, bird, like squirrel. It goes, bird. Oh, I could fly away. Excellent. Right? So no, it will never say no. It'll never say no. And even if you don't see it, you know it exists. If you've ever read a book, if you're not visual, if you've ever read a book, you just know, oh, if my feelings were a place, I bet they'd look like this. And first bird that came to mind, I think a pelican. So people think, oh, but what if I don't see it? But they know it. I can, so it's just such a great exercise. And it works. So then why are we doing this? Well, what better way to fly into the uncharted without fear?
No, I couldn't say it's the only way, but it's certainly the way. You have something you describe early on in the book, in that a map is a representation of our past. If we wanted to go into the future, we have to drop the map and drop the fear.
Yeah. And have courage, and sometimes courage has to come. You can't wait for the absence of fear, but this helps. This will help. It's not perfect. It's one of many, many thousands of techniques and protocols on this planet, I'm sure. But it's one that does work, and it's the one that I created.
Thank you. Before we start to go into a few quick wrap-up questions, you talk about the different realms in the book. Is there one realm in particular we should look at that we get to start working on?
Yeah, and I really think first it's our worldview. I think the first thing is to recognize that we are, I think that we're hypnotized by the material world and seeing the world as separated. So I think if we saw the world through the lens of connection and collaboration and in a different way, that's the first start to begin. But if you actually want to get down to do work, because that's the realm of spirit, is the one that's the kind of matrix of all of them, is the realm of mind, because it's the next one. It's consciousness. So how does our mind operate in the subconscious, and how do we actually think, and our thoughts, feelings, and beliefs actually help us create, the art that we live in, and to really monitor those. Like, a lot of people don't even know what they think all the time. They have no clue why they think the way they think. They just do. So it's about being really conscious and aware of your thoughts.
And from there, if we looked at the realm of light,
We illuminate the darkness. So the realm of light is, first, we acknowledge that we are light. Secondly, we acknowledge that the light needs to enter the darkness. And so we look at our shadow in the realm of light, and we embrace the shadow. I think in the realm of light is where I talked about the dragons. Is that when I?
Yes, I
the
believe
dragons,
so.
right? So I have a section called "How to Train Your Dragons,"
which that went into my subconscious. So when you said choose your dragon, at first I'm thinking the black dragon from How Do You Train Your Dragon, which looks just like our kitty cat.
Yeah. So, I talk about dragon. First of all, the symbol of the dragon represents personal power in so many cultures around the world. So I say, in the center of our solar plexus is this dragon.
Toothless. I apologize. Toothless is the dragon's name.
I love Toothless. So we have this coiled up dragon within us, burping and farting inside us and blowing, inappropriately singeing ourselves and others because we haven't fed it well. We haven't taken it out for exercise. It's in there, it's stuck, it doesn't know what to do, it's pissed off, or it feels powerless, it's not allowed to use its power. And so in order for us to have a healthy relationship with our dragon, we have to take it out and let it fly, and we have to fly with it. And so this is the metaphor for owning our personal power and seeing where it has atrophied or where it has been malnourished, and it doesn't. And this is not a blaming book. This is just about a book of discovery. So what we find out it's cultural. So what do we find out it's our parents? It doesn't matter. The point is that we have an opportunity right now to do things differently. And so. And I love the dragons in Avatar, that movie Avatar.
Yes.
Where he has to tame the dragon, and then you merge, you mind meld with the dragon. The hair goes with the tail or whatever, and it's the most extraordinary thing because then the person is able to fly. Then you are given these superpowers, and for me, the symbol of the dragon is also representing that fire, which is spirit. Spirit is fire. Fire is the element of spirituality. Optimism, activity that is sacred. And so when we claim our dragon, we're able then to shed light on the parts of us with courage, because most of us don't want to look in the dark. We don't. Then we want to claim that, and then we go into the realm of energy, which is our intention. So we can't skip a beat. Right? We can't skip a realm. We're automatically going to go there, because then from this, it's like, oh, wow, we shape our intentions based on how aware we are and conscious we're willing to be, and how we're willing to transform and change those things that are harmful to us and others. And then all of a sudden, that energy is like goes out into the world, and then boom, we get form. And the realm of energy also includes emotion, because emotion, right? So our feelings about life and we have thoughts, then we have feelings, then we have form. So the form shows up in the end, and then it recycles, because the form is part of spirit, because we called it from the realm of spirit. It's like what Joe Dispenza would say, that there is a potential in the quantum field, and you align with that through your emotions, and your thinking first, your emotions second, your willingness to claim it, and then you reinforce it over time.
Beautiful. So from there, and I was thinking about this as I was journaling this morning. So maybe I don't know. The words were coming to me. I don't know how you describe that as I was journaling this morning. And what I was hearing is that I need to take more time. If I want to create a vision for my future, it comes actually from closing my eyes, that you need to see within, not without. We have this habit, and I know as a self-help book addict, and as so many people who listen to the show and buy a lot of these beautiful books as well, we have a habit of listening or reading these things, but not necessarily taking action on it. So,
right.
so guilty as charged one too many times over. Is it that we take time, like yourself, to meditate every day, and maybe not as long, although I think that's pretty awesome, and I'm a meditator twice a day myself, but is it that we take time on the cushion and then additional time to close our eyes, visualize this, or journal this? How do we put this into some practice so people can leave here and start doing it?
So first of all, I want to talk about my book, because in my book, if you read it cover to cover, it's a fun, lighthearted, great story. And
Filled with lots of dragons and lots of motorcycles.
And it's a ride, right? And you can see yourself in it, right? And it's fun. But if you read the book and do the exercises, it's a really deep dive into some really deep stuff. So you can start by doing that, doing the exercises. Art, there's all kinds of ways. I mean, for me, I practice this daily. So I imagine it in my meditation.
Mm-hmm.
I hold space and by practicing gratitude, I think that's your number one priority, is to be grateful in advance.
Yes.
This is the abracadabra for everything. So to keep it simple, for somebody to practice this when they stop listening to this and everything else, is be grateful in advance. Because you are then saying to the universe, thank you, I have received this. And so you are in a state of complete and absolute receptivity for whatever the universe has for you. And you can never be disappointed, because your expectations are really just that the essence will be met by the appropriate form. Mm-hmm. Right? And that's the way that we have to rethink things. That's what we really need to change. But it is the abracadabra of everything. And I say gratitude is that. I think Pam's book, Think and Grow Rich, is a little bit like that too, right? So,
yeah,
but
Pam's,
it's thanking you. Yes.
Pam's is a beautiful reminder that from that first step out of bed, put yourself in the place of gratitude, and you'll vibrate at such a high frequency, you would start to attract things in. So I guess we get ourselves in that frequency. We grab Uncharted and we go to one of the exercises. And now that we're vibrating at a beautiful frequency, we dive in.
Yeah, totally. Or dive in and then do grateful. I don't care when you do it. I want to mention too, yes. I love the idea of community. That's the other thing, because when you're in Uncharted, you need to be in a community. And yeah, so community is really key, because I think that the biggest problem that we all have is that we live in a world that doesn't practice any of this yet. And we're running around constantly looking at our current state of affairs as our actual reality, when it really isn't. If we want something new, we want to also be with like-minded people. So mm-hmm. I put together the Uncharted book club on Facebook. I never thought I would have this many people. I've already got 1,700 people in there, and people are just starting to find out about it. And it's a really great group of people. I mean, I do have rules. You're only allowed to talk about the solution, not the problem, and you can't solicit people in it, et cetera. And people are self-policing, and it's fantastic. But it's a really, really fantastic group of like-minded people who are extraordinarily supportive of one another. So if anybody listens to this and want to join, obviously, as soon as you get the book, you can just go to Facebook, the Uncharted Book Club, and join us, because it's amazing. I go in there. It's just so gratifying to see so many people really are working with this content and saying, yeah, I'm not really happy where I'm at. Mm-hmm. I haven't really hit a bottom, but I want something more, and I want to contribute more. And I feel like there's an authentic way for me to be that I'm not there yet with. And then they're sharing, doing exercise and stuff. So I'd love to invite your listeners over there.
Beautiful, beautiful. And is there another website that you'd like to send people to find out more and to find your beautiful book as well?
Thank you. Yes. Colette, baron-reid.com. That's COLETTE BARONREID.com. You can buy the book on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Indigo in Canada. It's being published in quite a few languages now. So it's there. You just have to look for it.
Woohoo! So,
thank you.
Few quick wrap-up questions. First, Jessica always wants me to ask a question. What advice can we give based on this for parents or for their kids to help them lead an uncharted life?
So, Uncharted is about discovering. So, for parents, it's to keep their kids curious. And when they think they know it all, get them to keep learning. Because it's really about discovering new things instead of getting caught in familiar things. So I would say that.
Is there a way, kids in the beginning are fearless. Then we tend to often give them the fear.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
That keeps them from going off the map.
Yeah. Well, they have to have a map in the beginning. I mean, people need you need to orient yourself, and the kids need to understand the social order, etc. But I think the most, like for example, the uncharted child now would be a kid who is really showing signs of a lot of intuition or psychic abilities, and that's uncharted because there's nothing in society that says that that's mainstream okay. So you want to allow that child the experience of that as long as it's not harming them. And you want to encourage them to explore these other realms of thought and experience. But one thing I will say is that the journey to the uncharted is not a constant thing. It's a process that you enter into when you are ready to make a change, right? So kids are always stepping into the uncharted. Every time it's through puberty is uncharted, adolescence is uncharted, going to college is uncharted. We have a lot of uncharted experiences growing up. So I think, parents, the conversation to have is to tell the kids it's okay to learn new things and to have the courage to be in new environments.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. So a question we like to ask all our guests at the end. I'm excited to see what your answer is for this one. What personally brings you the greatest happiness, or what I call the woohoo factor?
Oh, meditating in the morning with my husband and my 3 dogs on our laps, holding a rose quartz crystal is lately my woohoo. And the other one is riding my Harley.
And what are you riding now?
I have a deluxe Softail Harley Davidson motorcycle, and I also have a freewheeler trike.
Oh, I've seen those. Those are cool.
Yeah.
Favorite?
No favorite. Just depends on if I need more stability, I ride the 3 wheels, and if I feel a little bit more like I want to do the bends, I'll get on my 2 wheels. Very
cool. So any last words of wisdom you want to share with people?
Yeah, lighten up.
Thank you, Fred.
Yeah, it's life is really to be savored, and to trust that in the unknown, there are experiences to have that you haven't had yet. And wouldn't you want to know that your life was filled with these new experiences, as well as the ones that you already know that are like your soft blankie that you're familiar with? But some amazing new things are in the uncharted, and you're not going to tank when you go into the uncharted boat and you go across the seas. There may be dragons, but there may be magic too.
And the world will not be flat.
No. That was kind of a dumb ending, but...
Well, we can say, let there be dragons.
Yes. And those dragons may be there, but they're really cute.
I like it. Thank you so much, Colette, for being on the show. You are always a lot of fun. Everyone, I can't recommend Uncharted enough. It was a lot of fun. And yes, particularly if you like dragons, but the exercises are really cool. And if you're feeling a little bit stuck, or you're not sure where to go, or you're getting jiggy with your subconscious as well, it can help. So for everyone out there, this is Michael Sandler saying, be well, have fun, get uncharted, and begin the journey, and shine bright. Woohoo! Thank you, Colette.
That was fun.
Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like below. Also, leave your comments. Have some real fun with it. Subscribe to our channel where you're going to get more great videos, more interviews coming up. And check out our website, inspirenationshow.com. That's where you'll find tips, blogs, information, videos you won't find anywhere else, and useful and helpful resources to really help you kickstart your life and to shine bright. Thanks so much again. Thank you for your support. Like, comment, subscribe. See the website. Thanks so much, and have fun. Of course, shine bright. Woohoo!